All right, well, welcome everybody. My name is Michelle Lewis, and I am the Executive Director of the Parent Information Center in New Hampshire. So I lead New Hampshire's IDEA-funded Parent Center, and I'm very excited to be with you today. I also work for DAISY, so I'm bringing multiple perspectives today. First and foremost, I am a parent of a child with a disability, and my passion is early childhood. And that passion really comes from what happened when my daughter was born. She had a seizure. I won't go into all of the details, but that kind of thrust me into my journey of early childhood. And she's now 16. She started to drive this year, which brought its own challenges, and she's doing great with it. But it takes me back anytime I'm preparing to work with family leaders or to think about the family perspective and for family engagement and family voice on teams. It brings me right back to those days in the NICU and those days of early intervention and with the school. And I really credit the partnership that I had with my early intervention program, with my whole family had, with her success today, actually, because we were able to get services very quickly. And I was able to work with a team of people. So that's a little bit about why I'm so passionate about the difference it makes when you partner with families. And so all of you as parent leaders, or those who work with parent leaders, the majority of you are parent leaders, you have a huge role to play. And it's the partnership that happens at the state, local, or even the child level where we see those outcomes. So I'm excited again to be part of this convening. I'm excited to have you all as part of state teams that are coming together to really work together around all areas of early childhood, whether you're coming here with a Part C team or whether you're coming here with a 619 lens. So again, wish we were in person, but at least we can all get together. I want to also share, let's see, the session objectives. One of the things when we were framing this conference that we really wanted to focus on was a team of people. And that's one of the things, DAISY, when they were planning the conference and with their conference partners, we really wanted teams of people to come together and attend this conference, this virtual convening together. So one of the things we'll discuss is what effective teams look like and how they function. You're all going to share and learn from each other on the different strategies that you all have used to support the work that's going on in your state related to state systems. And we're also going to talk about how you plan to share your voice at these virtual sessions over the next couple of days. I will say it's really hard. I have a tough time presenting virtually. I'm learning, just as probably all of you have over the months that we've been involved with this. But I really want to say this is going to be a conversation. So we've set up different ways for you to share your thoughts. We'll be using breakout rooms, of course, but we also will be using the chat function. And we will also be using a function called Annotate. And when we get there, I'll explain about those if you're not familiar with them as well. And Lauren will also support on the tech end if anyone has any questions as we go through. But the first thing we're going to do is do a quick introduction, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to go into breakout rooms. We're only going to go in the breakout rooms for about 5 minutes. And you'll introduce yourself and where you're from. And I want you to take a minute and identify 3 things that you all have in common. So as you introduce yourselves, learn a little bit about yourselves, come up with 3 things that everybody in the group has in common, and then choose someone to share out. And we're going to do a quick round robin when we come out of the breakout rooms. So I'm going to put the directions in the chat. but I think Lauren's gonna take you through, you'll be transported to a breakout room. Okay, everybody's back. I got the thumbs up. All right, so welcome back. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call out what breakout room by number, and hopefully you've all chosen someone to share your 3 commonalities. So breakout room 1, please unmute yourself, whoever's talking, and say what your 3 commonalities are. What if you didn't see your number?
I did not see my number. I'm Sharon Jones. I did not, the spokesperson, but I did not see what number we were.
Okay. Fair enough. Were you?
I can go ahead if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sorry.
Flexible.
Okay. That was a short time. We all were enjoying talking to each other, and I was sharing my vacation that I just had. But we did find something in common was that we all were affected by disability very closely, via children or family member or ourselves. And I think that's, I like to say that I have a master's in special needs because when I live with my son who is 25 now, but I mean, it is more valuable than any college education you can get when you live that life. So that was something that we all had in common. So
great. Thank you. Okay, how about another group, since we might not know our numbers, which is okay. So group 2 or just another group in general?
Group 2, we were sharing that we are all part of a work for an organization who helps families with children birth to 3 years old in some capacity. We also found that we are all family members, parents or sibling. We have a sibling who is a child with special needs, and we didn't have chance for the third one.
That's okay.
We were sharing about our group, and it was a great opportunity to meet each other.
Great, thank you. How about group 3? Or another group?
I'm not sure what group we were either. So
I know, that's okay.
But we had a great conversation and we found 3 things. We all changed careers into a field that had to do with the disability community. And then all of us said that early intervention was extremely precious and life-changing for us even. And then that our kids are really our teachers and that we find something new to learn every single day and we're just not done learning.
Great. Thank you. All right, another group.
I'll go ahead and jump in. In our group, we are all parents and our children love role-playing games and movies. We are all Marvel movie fans and we've all been to Florida.
Excellent. Anyone else? Next group. I think there's 8 groups total.
Well, Michelle, this is Dawn, and I'll go ahead and speak for our group. I also don't remember what number we were. But we're very similar to some other groups. We all had children, and we all had some relationship with birth to 5 services, either for ourselves or for our own children. And then our third thing was that we all loved the beach.
Nice. Okay, any other groups? Anyone else wanting to share some commonalities? Okay. What I love about doing this is not only getting to talk to other people in who are actually in the session and to particularly some other family members. So it sounds like we're all starting to make some connections, which will help us as we move through these virtual sessions over the next couple of days. I think the other thing is we all come from different backgrounds. Potentially, I'm guessing most of us are coming from different states, possibly even different territories. And so we're all bringing different perspectives, but we still are able to find some common ground and some things that really, really connect us and kind of give us all a sense of purpose, or at least a sense of enjoying some of the same things. So I'd encourage you to, even when we may not always agree on something, just remember that we all have different commonalities. We may just come at it from very different perspectives, and that's okay. So one of the reasons I picked this quote, one, Phil Jackson, for those of you who don't know, is a legendary basketball coach, particularly of the Chicago Bulls. And I happen to be a great basketball fan, especially back when the Bulls were kind of at the height. But what I really love about this is he's really talking about the strength of the team is each individual member, but the strength of each member is the team. So it shows that back and forth relationship of needing those various perspectives when we think about teaming, because it also then lends strength to the overall team approach that you have. And each individual member contributes to that team. So just think about that as we go through this next chunk, is really focused on teaming. And teaming doesn't mean, okay, so my staff, my mantra that my staff is really sick of me saying is the benefit is in the struggle, right? So much as I really would like to not struggle as much these days when it comes to the pandemic and things, sometimes struggling is what we need to do as a team to come out with a better product. Because if we all just agreed and all had the same strengths, we may not come to a better outcome at the end. So when I'm working with families, or when I'm working with people in the early intervention system or preschool special education, I always talk about that it doesn't mean that you have to agree with everybody, but it's important that we all use our voice and share our different perspectives, because it's going to lead to better outcomes. And that's a really key piece. When we talk about stakeholder engagement and teaming or convening, we look to a lot of the things around leading by convening. And so this may speak to you if you are familiar with the leading by convening concept. But the piece for this is we want to really take a look at stakeholder engagement as opposed to stakeholder management. And as family members, and I know, well, I'll speak for myself, a lot of times I'm invited to participate in a focus group, or I'm invited to give my input into things. And I very much enjoy that. I'm not sure the people who've invited me always enjoy that, because I have a tendency to be pretty outspoken in a very appropriate way, but I definitely ask a lot of questions, and I encourage you all to use your voice to ask those critical questions. But there is a difference between what's called stakeholder engagement and stakeholder management. And they all have their place, so I'm not judging one or the other. But when we look at convening and teaming, we're really focused on buy-in. We're really focused on that shared vision. And I'll go back to something, I think it was Donna during the keynote, who was talking about the fact that in leadership positions, we really have to look at the vision and what the purpose is. And we're going to talk more about that. But we really have to be able to think about and involve our stakeholders and really share that leadership aspect of it. And it's the common vision and purpose that guide us in this work. And that's going to be really key as you are on these state level teams, and for our state level teams to think about this. Teaming and convening is much larger than just one meeting. It's larger than just facilitation. It's the beginning of a relationship. And so, you know, I've worked with, I happen to be chair of our ICC, and we always are seen as a huge stakeholder in the process, and ICCs absolutely are. And what we've moved to is really having it be a team approach, as opposed to the Part C coordinator coming in, giving us information and leaving. We're really setting up that building consensus, that working together, that planning together, and really making sure we have all the right stakeholders at the table. it's a different way of doing business. It takes a lot more time to set up a teaming, convening type process than it does to go into either an existing group or asking people to come to a focus group. But it's a really critical component when we are really wanting to move the work forward and really wanting to think about how we create this ongoing relationship with multiple stakeholders, and in particular, the family voice in that stakeholder group. And we'll be talking more about that. All right, so I want to talk about who are the stakeholders, and this is where we're going to use annotate. So Lauren, I may have to have you put directions, but if you look up, because it looks different on the person who's screen sharing. For annotate, you're going to go over to the more function on the upper right-hand side as you're facing your computer. There should be, if you hover over that, if you drop down, it says annotate. And so everybody should be able to do that. And when you do it, you can put a text function and write who you think, what you consider, either what you think about who the stakeholders are, what you think about the stakeholders, and their role in the process. If you, it looks like people are trying to do it. So if you go up to the view options menu at the top, when you click annotate, different things pop up like mouse, select, text, draw. And so you can put text in, yep. So Cornelia just put community business. Childcare, parents, teachers, here we go, advisory councils, faith-based groups, great. Legislators. All right. So it looks like we've got everything from community businesses, family members, grandparents, guardians, faith-based groups, community organizations, lots of different providers, different stakeholders, higher ed, data people, legislators, PD providers, professional development providers. So lots of different people involved when we say the word stakeholders. And I think it's important for us to think about, as stakeholders, who do we want at the table? Who do we need? I shouldn't even say want. Who do we need at the table? Because that's a really critical piece, and that stakeholders can change depending on what activity or what part of your plan is as well. So, all right. Oops. So thank you for trying that with me. I've never tried the annotate function, and it looks like overall that seemed to work okay. People were able to get in and use it. So again, trying to have some fun here with Then you can clear it and we can go on. All right, once I turn off the function. Okay, so some of this I already highlighted, but I think we've all most likely heard the term "there's no I in team," and that definitely lends itself to what we just shared all together on the screen doing the brainstorming. And when we have multiple perspectives, we get a much richer discussion. And really, when you're looking at data or when you're looking at any type of teaming process, it should not be the responsibility of one person or be reflective of one person's opinion. So that broader solutions, you're looking for broad solutions, you're looking to pull from everybody's different sets of expertise, their networks, their skills, and their strengths. I always say, I actually say this to my kids, they don't enjoy it, but there's certain things they do really well. And then, so I try to have them do a lot of their things they do well. So I align them to their strengths. I try to use people to their strengths. I align my staff to what their strengths are. We do have to do things we don't like to do as well, but particularly when we're looking at our skill set, you sometimes are looking when you're on a team for people with certain skill sets. So that's a really important piece. There's also no one way to create a team. So you all know, you've probably been, and we'll talk about this, parts of various teams, been asked to be a part of a team, maybe come off a team because it wasn't the right fit. But when you're really looking at it, we especially when you're looking at a data team, and I was thinking about it too during the keynote, I think it was the deputy director of OSEP when he was talking about the different perspectives and really thanking family members for really being at the table today, because we as family members provide an extremely unique perspective. We are able to help people see beyond the data, beyond the numbers and trends, and really help them understand what's going on out there in the field and what might be contributing to that data. So we have a very unique perspective. We are, somebody said this, like we're living it. They have their masters in special education, and it's not because they went to school for that many years either. It's because they're living it every day. But we can't do it alone either. So we have to have people familiar with Part C and Part 619 on the ground at the state level and at the local level, because you really do want a larger perspective. You want what's going on at the state, and you want the locals to say, that's not my perspective, that type of thing, in the give and take. You also want people who are familiar with the data collection. So you're like, okay, I have all this data. How did we get the data? Here's what I'm looking at for reports, but where did it come from? And how did it get collected? So you really need someone who's very familiar with that as well. You also need people who are really looking at, how do you use the data? Are they using the data, and what are they using it for, to use it and to analyze it? And then you also need someone who really understands the data and its limitations and potentially the quality of the data. And this might be the different sets of expertise, but when you're looking at analyzing the data and coming at it from these different perspectives, people are going to see the data from their own lens, from the lens and the strength of which they come to these meetings and come to be a part of this team. And that's really key in terms of the work that's getting done. And to be able to bring those different perspectives and to share the data in a way that can be understood. And we'll talk some about that data visualization piece in terms of, does the data make sense? Do you have questions about it? Both what it looks like on the paper or the screen being given to you, and also what the numbers actually mean. So very key piece. I also want to recognize that there's different levels of teaming, because when we talk about teaming, there's the child level team. So right at either the early intervention team level, where you're working with a group of providers to support your child. And then also, or at the school level, when you're working with a group of teachers and related service providers to meet your child's individual needs. And then there's the system level teams. So your local and state level systems. And not everybody loves to be part of teams, but just by the nature of us having, being a parent or a family member of a child with a disability, we are on teams. And so we have to know how to navigate those teams and kind of what it all means. So I'm very curious, and you can either unmute or write in the chat. How do you see, what's the similarities or the differences or your experience either working at the child level, so working as a family member for your own child, versus the system level teams? I'm just curious if anyone has any thoughts. You can also unmute if you have anything to share too. How do you see these as the same or different?
Hi, my name is Robin. I am from Virginia. And I would say that working with systems as a parent or as a support person for a parent, it seems that systems have one view where the parent might have a different view. And sometimes I think I find it very difficult in Virginia to have everybody on the same page and working together.
Okay.
I think that when parents are needing supports or services for their child in the community, no one knows their child better than them. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes some systems like to tell the parent what they need. And in some ways, it's in some areas they are correct, but listening to the family and having the family's voice at the center of the table is crucial.
Great. Any other thoughts? So Brittany shares with us, she thinks that what you learn at the child level, you can use to make positive changes at the system level. I'm probably not going to pronounce Sadia's name right. One of the things she's experienced or he's experienced both at the child level teams and system level in my early intervention journey is the high value given to the family perspective. Diane shares, when I'm working at the child level more for one child, where state and local is for all, more for all for special needs children. Yeah, those different levels of the system. It's important, and it's important to know what level of the system you're working at. And I have a tendency to ask a lot of questions. So if I'm going to, and I think we all should, if I'm invited to be part of a local team or even the state level, I'm always asking, like, what are you needing from me as a family member? Are you wanting my own personal experience? Are you wanting, thinking from the state level, how do we get the different perspectives there? So Kelly's sharing, she found at the child level as a mom, I didn't think I was the expert. That means something different when you're helping a parent navigate. Okay. Systems has to look at cultural context and experience of multiple communities and families. Yeah. So you're looking at it through levels of the system. All right. Thank you. Oh, I'm missing. Danae says, everything seems so organized and deliberate at the state level. At the family level, there are many other random factors that cause unexpected things to happen. That's true. Very true. I have seen that as well. Go ahead.
This is Doris from Florida. I think in many ways they mirror each other. There's many elements that I can see, skills I learned as a parent that I can use when working at a state level. And I think vice versa, things that I learned can help also. Now my child's older, but it helps me as a parent. So I think in mirrors, there's a lot of similarities in the dynamics.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that I feel very similar to that aspect of it. I've learned a lot through teaming at the child level and then bringing it up into the local and state level, and then also back at the child level. I think that's really important. What I like about, I just want to say for all of you sharing, is you're all sharing your voice, your family leaders, and you're sharing your voice at different levels of the system. And those of you who support other families, and I know that many of you, if not all of you do, helping them find their voice is a really key piece to this, both at the child level as well as the local and state level systems. So Connie tells us it's very helpful for parent leaders to learn the different levels so they understand how it all fits together. And that is really important, Connie, you're right. And I know you do that in particular in Nebraska. And I think many of the other parent centers across the country, as well as you all as parent leaders, are helping families kind of understand that and use what they're learning at each of the levels of the system so they can see how it all fits together. Excellent. All right. Thank you for that. So when we talk about an effective team, and we kind of touched on some of it as we were talking about the different levels, teams really are effective when there's that clear vision. So where are we wanting to go, right? So being really clear that it's helping with buy-in, right? So when the vision and purpose are clear, so when you all come to an IEP meeting or you come to an IFSP meeting, you're coming in at the child level, you know why you're there. There's a vision and purpose on supporting your son or daughter's learning, development, those types of things. When you're coming at the local level or the state level, sometimes the vision isn't always clear. And so it's really important when teams come together that they solidify that clear vision. So I know why I was invited to this team. And how do you shape the vision of that team so you know as a family member why or if you even want to participate in that team? Is that vision aligned? You also want to know, as well as all the other members of the team, what are the roles? Everybody, and not just us as family members, but all the other team members, what's their role and what's the team expectation? So everybody knows going into these teams, like what, you know, why are we here and what are you expecting from me? And also that there's a clear plan. So what is the plan that we're following? What is it? Not that plans need to be monitored and adjusted, absolutely, but that it's very clear we know what the vision is and how we're going to get there. And not only that, we need to know what processes and procedures are going to be followed in order for us to make decisions. We know that there are going to be barriers. We know that there are going to be challenges, but how can we overcome it and keep moving it forward? And that we're constantly doing that continuous improvement monitoring and really looking at it. And all of this is to say, we don't come into teams knowing all of this by the time you sit down, right? You don't walk into a room and know all of this when you're coming into a new team. So it's really important that particularly us as family members, when we're in there, if we don't know what the vision is, if we don't know what our role is, if we don't know what the plan is or anything, that we ask those questions. Now, if I was working with a team of state or local personnel, I would talk to them about making sure that they have this clearly articulated as well, because what we find, the research tells us, is this is what matters for an effective team to be together. So, and I would say to the data managers I've worked with, or the Part C coordinators or a local program person, like, you need to ask the questions too, because nobody has this figured out, and use your voice in those meetings. As family members, we have lots of choices. And what I mean by that is I think someone wrote in the chat, you know, one of the important things is they feel like, I'm trying to think, I'll look at it, that their perspective, there's a high value given to the family perspective. And that is really important when we go into the state level team. And why you have a lot of choices is you might be asked to be a part of a lot of state and local level teams. So you really want to know what your why is, right? Why? What's the why of this group? What's the why for me? So really being clear on kind of why you want to be involved in state level work, not the what. And I want to say that again, it's really easy for us to think about the what of the work. What I'm asking you to do, and I ask teams to do, is to step back to really think about the why. And for those of you who are familiar with Simon Sinek, which looks at the golden circle, and I'm certainly a resource if you haven't seen it, that really talks about what is your why. I think for me, what is most important to me about this, as I've done some research into it, is that our why, our behavior, the limbic system of the brain, that's where it's housed. It doesn't have capacity for language. So you know when you have that gut feeling, that feeling in your gut, that feeling in your heart, and you're like, I'm just not really sure about this, but you don't have any words for it? That is your limbic system. It's the why and the how. It's the why you do this work. And so if we communicate the what, if we know, okay, we have to come together and this is what we're going to do. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. People can understand really complicated information that's coming at us, but the behavior doesn't change. So you have to find a way to engage someone's what's called limbic system of the brain. And I'm not a brain expert, so don't worry, I'm not going to go into that. But you really want to find a way to engage the why. Because when we engage the why, it engages in behavior change. And then the what gives language to it. So I want you to think about, and some of you touched on this in your introductions, but I really want you to think about, what is your why? What is your why? What's your purpose, your cause or belief? Why are you here as a family member participating with the state level team? If you can think about that and share it in the chat, that would be helpful. Just really take a minute and think about it. So take a look at the different people are putting in the chat. I won't read them all because they're really starting to come in, and really think about, what is your why? Why do you do this? What's your cause or belief? And that can really guide the work of what you're doing at the local and state level, to really guide what teams you choose to participate in, and also know on whether or not it's the work of that team is aligned with where you want to be. And that is a really important piece for you. And also being able, something you're passionate about, that gut feeling, that thing that's in your heart, it's a lot easier to be on a team where you have that, that drive, that internal drive that comes from your why. We can all do the what, even when we don't want to do the what. We can do the what. So thank you. Like I said, take a minute to take a look at the chat, and really look at, there's lots of good whys, strong whys. I shouldn't be judging anyone's why, but people have really spent some time thinking about the why. And you'll see lots of similarities in the why as well. All right. So this is going to prep us into, we're going to soon be going into breakout sessions where we'll do some more sharing amongst each other of some different strategies. Oops. So think about what systems level teams you're involved in. And I just showed you, or I shared with you, what makes an effective team. So of the teams you're involved with, what makes them effective? What are you seeing out in the teams that you're involved with as family leaders that make them effective? You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and we can share. So I'm seeing some pieces come in: feasible timelines, partnership, shared vision on behalf of children and families, roles and expectations are clearly defined in the systems I'm involved with, a process for reaching consensus. Excellent. Very helpful. I find that team member accountability leads to more productivity in our meetings, wanting to make the world a better place for all children, enthusiasm for meaningful family engagement and partnerships. Excellent. All right, well, that sets it up nicely because we've started to get kind of those thoughts going. We're going to go into breakout rooms again. In this, we're going to go in for probably about 13 minutes. Guess I'm being pretty specific. But in your breakout rooms, I really want you to share how you are using your voice. How are you sharing your voice and the voice of other families in the state? It's that sharing of strategies that you can share with each other. Granted, it'll just be a small group of you, and then we'll do a small report out because I want to hear, and I want you all to hear about the amazing work that you're all doing, and you might get some other ideas from people. So yeah, so Lauren, I think we'll go for about 13 minutes in the breakout rooms. Does that work? So she soon will be whisking you away into a breakout room again. And you'll have some time. I'll put the thoughts in the chat, what I'm asking you to do. But again, what I'm really wanting you to do is share strategies with each other about teaming, working at the state level or local level, and your work supporting other families or the voice of other families. I think we're all back. So I'm curious, who would like to share any highlights that they had? maybe they wouldn't like to share. Who's willing to share some highlights?
I will.
Okay, excellent.
I'm Sharon Jones. Yeah, we had a great group with a lot of people that were we're talking about PTIs and things like that. And my work with the DOE in Georgia, I work directly with our PTI, and we have a great relationship with them. And I was talking about just some of the different collaborations that we have at DOE, that we have like facilitated IEPs, and we have a help desk where parents or districts can call us and ask special ed questions and things like that. So we're all talking about PTIs and sharing information and wondering what we did before the internet. And again, copying and making lots of copies and mailings was how you did things, and it was always fun. But on all the groups, I think that we're all in, I think, we talked about the having the purpose and the goals and knowing, what you're doing and where you're going, and being, open for the voice for those families. And I think, we all are experiencing that, and how we can help. And, I'm on the help desk for DOE a great deal. I'm the main person, and we do rotate because it can be overwhelming, but I think it's great to have a parent able to call and share. And when I secretly sometimes let them know that I am also a parent of a child with disability, I mean, there's the relationship is completely changed. And when I say, you got this and you're going to be fine and everything's okay, I think that they know I know. And I think that relationship is great. So a great opportunity to be even one-on-one support for families is sometimes what we all need. And I know that's hard for PTI to accomplish, but we need sometimes one-on-one parents to talk to that have been through this. So, but we're talking about that. We have our groups, we have our missions, we have our purpose, and we plow through it and go out and spread our knowledge. So
Great. Thank you, Sharon. Just for those of you who don't know, PTIs are Parent Training and Information Centers. And there's at least one in every state. Some of the larger states have multiple parent centers, and I'll actually show you where you can find your parent centers. There's also community parent resource centers, those that focus on a specific city or a specific population. And parent centers are funded under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So just in case, I'm hoping you all, if you are not connected to your parent centers, that you will be after this session as well, because they have a lot of supports for families as well as working at the system level. So thank you for bringing that up, Sharon. Other thoughts from the groups reporting out? Different strategies, things that's worked well with teaming.
I can go. Our group talked about a specific challenge,
Okay.
and that is that of budgets, the challenge that budgets introduce, partly because different people on a team are going to know more about the budget, understand more about what's going on with it, understand the limitations of it more. In some cases, we have, for me as a parent on our state ICC, I often will want to ask for something, like we think something that would be really helpful would be this. And the state will say, yeah, that would be, but we don't have the money for it. So thanks for playing, but whatever. And then from the state people's perspective, they know going in, there isn't any budget for this sort of thing. So they just kind of dread these things that people are going to bring up because they know they can't afford it and they have to say no. And then you have other parent reps that are on groups, and when you start dealing with the budget, they don't know anything about it. So they just expected to say yes. We talked about how a lot of groups will treat the parents as just these sort of interchangeable people that are on there to just agree and say yes, because we don't expect them to know anything about it. But of course, every parent is going to be different. And then also the struggle to try to help those parents and the people that don't know anything about the budgets to try to educate them about it. So it presents challenges at every level.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think pulling some pieces out of there for that is also making sure everybody has information. So you said there are challenges to this, but making sure there's education, not just for the family members, but others sitting on, you know, again, I'm chair of my ICC, and I have a lot of people around the table from different organizations who don't know at all, you know, how the budget's created. So I think making sure we all are working from the same information is a really key piece as well. So I think budgets are definitely a challenge, but I appreciate you raising that, meaning asking for things. This would really be helpful because at least you're putting it out there, and there might be some creative ways to get it done, or there might not be, and you might end up bringing it up a year from now as well. But that's how change occurs. So thank you.
This is Doris from Florida. And I have to say, I was talking with Miss Connie from Nebraska, and I was quite impressed because part of her PTI is role is mentoring members of the ICCs. And I find that absolutely wonderful because it's not having parents, they are just navigating on their own, but having a consistent person who can go through all these changes, mentoring the family members. And she was explaining, and I don't know, probably she wants to tell us more, but she was talking about how she calls them before each meeting, they discuss the agenda. So it is a wonderful example of that mentoring and supporting families, so they can actually participate in a meaningful way.
Connie, anything you'd want to share about that?
Sure. We're fortunate to have a grant through our Part C agency that allows me to do that. And so that's what I do a lot of, is making sure that the parents are ready for each meeting and that they understand what's on the agenda, what action items we have, what that means, any potential questions that they might have. I can give them background material or anything or even call in specific people to help answer questions if I can't do that myself, and be there at the meetings as well for them for support and to help answer any questions in the meetings. We also have an awesome facilitator who's been working really hard to make sure all the members are getting all the information. So we've been fiddling a little bit with our orientation, if we're doing, like a whole day, or if we're doing, pieces at each meeting and things like that. So we're still, it's part of some of that challenge, right? How do we make sure everyone's up to date on all of that information?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And I have worked with you before, so I know Nebraska's model is very powerful. And I'll highlight from the plenary, the opening session, they talked a lot about coaching. And I think one of the things that you can receive from parent centers, not all parent centers have the funding to be able to do this, but having funding to help coach a family member, mentor a family member to be a part of state level systems, whether at Part C or the state advisory panel for 619 or any other local groups, So thank you for sharing that, Connie. Other groups.
This is Tony. I was volunteered by our group. So thank you, Karen and Jessica. We had a great discussion. And so both of my teammates for this afternoon, they are both, they both make sure their voices and the voices of other parents are heard. And we also talked about the fact that some parents, the information is there, but parents don't know where to look. And that also parents, they are sometimes making decisions on information that is not correct, or maybe not information provided in its entirety. For an example, a parent may move from one state to another state expecting to receive the same or better services, and that may not be the case. And so a great idea came out, and that was to have to create a systems administrator coordinator, somebody that could pull everything together, not just the information, but just making sure the information is accurate. And that would also include data that that stakeholders tend to look at from time to time, and being able to unpack that as well.
Excellent. All right, any other groups want to share before we move on? Shared some great ideas. Oh, we have in the chat, there's a meet and greet for families just before the state ICC meeting to support meaningful participation of families during the state ICC meeting. So that's another great idea. Great. All right, thank you. Hopefully you guys got some ideas, and even as you had some challenges. Oh, I think Matthew's son. Hello. Always brings us right back to why we're here. So thank you. All right. All right, so thinking about sharing your voice at IDIO at this virtual convening. Thinking about what sessions you're going to go to, and just curious what you are going to, so you can actually start to make some connections of others who are going to sessions, and you can even private message each other in those sessions to try to connect. Any thoughts? What you might be going to? We can see each other.
People are probably navigating to their schedules.
I know, right? Well, and I will see if I can. I did. No, it's not on my. As I'm the section on COVID-19. Somebody is going to. Oops, there it is. Somebody else said data visualization. So we talked about the importance of making sure the data is in a way you can access it. Culture of data use. Somebody else just said me too, Sarah. So they're going to data visualization. So you can take a look. If you don't remember, as Cornelia just said, what you registered for, you have it in your My Schedule of the actual virtual convening. So you can see what you're actually registered for. And if you want to take a look at the sessions again in their entirety, you can go under resources, and they have the full agenda, which is what I had up on my screen. I'll be honest, we intentionally did not pull out something aside from this rule alike specific for family leaders, because what I wanted, my perception is that I really want you to share your voice as your essential participation within each of these sessions, based on your passions, based on what you want to know about, and based on what your team has kind of worked out in terms of how you're going to do this. So you have everything from, you can see it here, family outcomes, race and equity and leadership, culture of data use, lots of different, you're going to find family members throughout all of these sessions, and you're able to connect with them before or after the sessions. If you want to take a look at, again, all the sessions, you can navigate in the virtual application to take a look at that. And think about questions that you have for the presenters. All the presenters have built in breakout rooms or other ways, chats, other ways to make these sessions very interactive. And I encourage you to use the voices, just your voice, just like you have been today, because we are, as family members, essential participants. People, again, highlighting from both the opening session and then what we're hearing today, people want to hear our voices. Even if it's not something they necessarily want to hear, they do want to hear your voice. They know that we are an essential part of that program improvement and of the systems level improvement that we are all a part of. So hopefully you've got some ideas on how each of, who might be in some of your sessions. So look for them. As you, most of you will be able to share or actually see the participant list. And I want to share a couple of resources before we wrap up. We only have a few more minutes, and you'll have access to this PowerPoint. But there's a number of toolkits that the Daisy Center has that has some really good information in it, particularly the Stakeholder Knowledge Toolkit, as well as the Data Culture Toolkit, that's really looking at the essential role that families play on these teams. And leading by convening. I've been hearing about leading by convening for many years. But if you go to this website, there are actually modules, and I was re-energized by even listening to the first module. So if you need some energy, kind of, especially during the times of COVID, this really helped me think about the importance of teaming and really convening, not just getting stakeholder input, but really having all stakeholders as part of a team. And yes, it takes work, but it's really important. And then, of course, serving on groups that make decisions, a guide for families. This is something that originally Wisconsin Facets put together as part of a grant that they were a part of at the state level. And it's really been used throughout the country to help families. And I use it even when I'm going into a new team of actually all professionals as they're getting ready to have family members be a part of. And they find it really helpful with their operating procedures. And then I referenced this at the end, but really looking and going, if you are not connected to your parent center, your IDEA funded parent center or community parent resource center, and you want to find that center, go to the Parent Center Hub and click on Find Your Parent Center. And they have a wealth of resources to support you in your parent leader positions. Many of you on the call are from parent centers. Those of you who are not, I encourage you to connect to those parent centers because they are a wealth of resources. And then I just want to say thank you for helping me navigate this virtual environment as well. It's always, I just love being in a room. I very much get a lot of energy, and you guys did energize me when you were talking about the discussions you were having and the work that you're doing. And so I'm going to take that into my sessions tomorrow and hopefully can connect with you there as well. Please complete the survey in your schedule. At the bottom of the sessions page, there's a link to please complete the survey, and we really value that feedback as we work to expand our support through parent centers and through parent leaders. Daisy is really committed to supporting the parent centers, support you as parent leaders, because I think we're all in this together. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your night. If you're on the West Coast, you're still in the afternoon. But for those of you on the East Coast, like myself, I am going home for the day. So thank you so much, everyone.